Well, good morning, everyone. Happy Mother's Day. My name is Jessica Seeley, and I am actually the Community Kids Director over at our Greensburg campus. And I get the honor and the privilege today to bring part 2 of our message series, Pack Your Bags. So you might be wondering, okay, so how did I get chosen to come up here today? Did somebody go on vacation? Did I lose a bet? No. Just my story fits so well with this part of the series. And when we were talking about what we were going to be doing, they were like, Jess, would you be willing to share a little bit about your story? And I was like, I would be honored to. It'd be great to share a little bit more about me and my family, but also I'm hoping that it's an encouragement for you and it equips you to be able to move forward with some hope and maybe just some things in your tool belt, things to pack in your bags as we go through our different life transitions. So a little bit about me. I've been doing kids ministry for probably about 13 years now. I absolutely love getting to be in that seat. If you hang around me long enough, you'll know that that is just my jam. I absolutely love it. It's so much fun getting to hang out with community kids. And my husband and I, we've been married for a little over 18 years. It'll be 18 years this summer. We were high school sweethearts. He is my best friend, and I just absolutely love getting a chance to do this life with him. And we've got 3 kiddos that we adopted from foster care. And you'll hear a little bit more about my story and about that whole season of our life here shortly in the message. But so they are 7, 6, and 6. Yes, I will take your prayers. Yes, I will. They are a lot of fun. It's very chaotic, but it's a lot of joy, and we have a really good time. And so with this journey, though, with foster care, that did not come without some challenges and some very difficult seasons. And so today's message, I just want you to know that and take a moment to recognize that Mother's Day, I know sometimes Mother's Day can be a difficult holiday for some people. I know for a really long season, it was really difficult for me. And so you might be in here today really struggling with grief or anxiety. Maybe you're dealing with some sadness about Mother's Day. Just know that I see you and I understand that. And I hope today is a little piece of healing and a little bit of hope for you as we go through today's message. So last week, Seth kicked off our message series talking about what do we need to pack in our bags. And he did this thing where we have to walk through this so we can understand it a little bit better, okay? So how to prepare to get to where you got to get to, from where you currently are, that you just got to, from where you recently were, that you cannot even remember. Yes. An easier way to say this is basically, how do we pack our bags for what's next? That's an easier way for us to say it. What do we need to be doing in this season that's going to help us in those seasons of transition as we move forward? Because we're always going to go through these different seasons, even if they're good or bad, right? You can have good season transitions and bad ones. And it brings a lot of stress. And so when you go to a counseling appointment, this is why a lot of times they will ask you the question, hey, have you had any big life changes recently? They'll ask that one of the first things they'll ask because they know that that causes anxiety and that causes stress, and that's probably part of the reason why you're needing to be in there and talk about things for that day. So maybe you're going into counseling because you started dating again, or maybe you're getting married, or maybe you're graduating, or maybe you've added a child to your home. And so when we go through all of these things, they cause us stress. And we need to know what we need to pack in our bag. So you're like, okay, Jess, I hear you. So what we need to be asking is, what do I need to pack in my bag? So we talked about we needed a bag. We talked about how we need that bag for transitions. But what is it that we actually need to pack in that bag for seasons of transition? So packing for me, honestly, is absolutely terrible. Is there anybody in here that likes to pack and like do the whole preparing? We are like-minded people. This is great. I absolutely hate it. I end up forgetting something that's like super semi-important or really important, and it just adds a lot more stress to the trip. Kind of like when you go to the airport and you are getting out of the car and you watch your husband drive away and then you realize, ooh, I might have left my phone in the cup holder of his car while he's driving away. Like, what are you supposed to do? Only to find that you've actually just put it in the wrong pocket. Like, isn't that terrible when you're like, oh, it's here. I just forgot to put it in the right pocket, right? So when I pack my bags, I want to make sure that I have certain things with me that are super important that I don't want to make sure, like I want to make sure I don't forget those things, okay? So those things are earbuds. Got to have earbuds, yes. We have to have earbuds for our audiobooks, for music, for that oscillating fan sound in the quiet hotel. We get it, right? You also need to have a travel pillow, so that way you're comfortable on the flight or in your car. And if you know me, I will have sunglasses everywhere. I have to have sunglasses in all my cars. I love having them in my bag. They need to go on the trip as well. And then lastly, I need to have something for motion sickness. Anybody else like really get motion sick? Yeah, not at Greensburg, we had a lot more people that were more motion sick, but it can be terrible. So when you are feeling motion sick, a lot of times when it comes to our life transitions, it can feel like that. One time I had a chance to go whale watching in Massachusetts, and I got to go do this whole thing. It was so much fun, where you got to go see the whales, and I had done it previously, so I decided this time I don't need anything. I'm okay. I'm obviously a sailor now because I was able to go on one boat ride. So I decided not to do my motion sickness medicine, get on this boat, and it's way smaller than the last boat. And some yoo-hoo decided to put like a hot chocolate bar on this. Yes, they put this hot chocolate bar on this boat with a food bar, and it's like small, and just the smell of hot chocolate and whale watching and the waves, and I really thought I was going to die. It was absolutely terrible. I was so motion sick. And a lot of times when we are motion sick like that, it takes the rest of the day to recover from it, right? It takes the rest of the day. It kind of sucks the energy and the life out of what you're getting ready to do next. And transitions in life can also feel this way, where we get this sense of motion sickness because of everything going on. We can lose our balance. We can even feel this way when we're going in a season that's good, like marriage. Marriage is a good thing. Graduation's a good thing. But there's still this instability that takes place in those seasons. And it can be really tempting for us in those seasons to drift or to shift. You can shift your values, your dreams, your processes. And for some of you, maybe even where you place your faith. So maybe you're here today and you're facing an even more difficult transition, like the loss of a loved one, or a diagnosis, or a job loss, or divorce. In either case, when we're in those like significant transitions, we need to do the same thing that we would do if we were motion sick. We need to make sure that we are focusing on something ahead and that we are holding on to something that is stable. When we lose focus on where we're going, it's kind of like a kid that's doing a piñata and they give them a stick and a blindfold and they spin them around and then they tell them to go for the piñata. It would be way easier for that kid to hit the piñata if he wasn't blindfolded, right? Way easier. I don't know who also came up with the idea of let's give a kid a stick and blindfold him and spin him around with, yeah. If you've been in the audience for one of those, you know it can be quite dangerous. So we need to pack something that will help us focus and something that we can hold on to. Last year, we got to celebrate the adoption of our kiddos by getting a chance to go to Disney World, and we got to ride this Slinky Dog. Has anybody ridden Slinky Dog? Oh, it's intense. Yes, we've got some hands in the back. Everybody's like, yes, I have. Yes, so Slinky Dog is a very fun roller coaster, but for all of our kids to ride, all the adults had to ride as well. And my husband is not a roller coaster person, so he got Dad of the Year award because he rode with my youngest daughter on this ride. And so we're on this ride, and there's a spot where you're in Slinky Dog, and Slinky Dog will pull back and like stops and gets ready to launch forward, and you're like waiting for that moment to happen. And my youngest daughter looks at my husband and goes, Daddy, I'm tired. I'm done now. We can get off. He's like, girlie, no, we can't. We're not. Hold on. You're just going to have to hold on as tight as you can. And so we took off, and she's laughing and screaming, and like she'll still tell you to this day it was probably one of her favorite rides. But we have to also do things similarly in transitions in our seasons when it just feels a little bit crazy. We have to do kind of like that ride, right, where we have to focus and we have to hold on. Which brings me to the crucial thing that we need to make sure that we are packing in a season of transition, and that is an anchor. So what does a good anchor actually look like? So a good anchor keeps the boat from drifting when it's peaceful waters. It also keeps the boat stable when there are storms that are coming. It also has to be built specifically for your ship. Like if it's too small, it's not going to work. It's not going to do its job very well. And it also has to hold up to corrosion and the different types of seabeds that it's going to be dropped into. And it has to be attached to the boat. Like that kind of matters, right? It has to be attached to the boat. That matters a lot. A few summers ago, I had the chance to be on a pontoon boat with some friends, and I wanted to be a sailor. I wanted to do all the sailory things. And so they let me do all the stuff. They let me help cast off. They let me drive. That was crazy. They should never have let me drive. But I got to drive, and we finally got to the spot where we were going to hang out for a little bit, and I get to drop the anchor, and I was so excited because I was officially like a sailor at this point. So I throw the anchor into the water. The cord is like going straight in, and everything's going great, and then all of a sudden, the rope disappears. Nobody had tied the anchor to the boat. Nobody did. Nobody tied it to the anchor. Nobody tied it. It was literally holding the bottom of the lake. So we need an anchor that we can hold on to, and also one that's strong enough to hold on to us, right? And that's what I want to talk about with the time that we have left today, is what it looks like to pack a real, reliable anchor as we navigate seasons of transition. So we're actually going to find our answer in the book of Hebrews. You'll be able to follow along on the screen, but if you want to, you can get on your app. Our church app actually has the Bible on it if you'd like to hang out there with me, but we're going to be camping out in Hebrews chapter 6 today. So the book of Hebrews is a masterfully written letter that was written to the Jewish people that were wrestling with this idea of who Jesus was, what's his identity, and this whole new faith that was popping up. So Jesus' fulfillment of the law and promises was kind of hard for them to accept. They were drifting and they were wondering, okay, is Jesus really the one that was the Messiah that we've been waiting on? Is he the one that is fulfilling the promises? So they were wrestling with this, going back and forth and just wondering. And there might be some people in this room today, you're kind of in that boat too, where you're like, I'm still trying to figure out who this God and Jesus thing is. And I just want you to know, like, I'm really glad that you're here today. So Hebrews chapter 6, verse 16 says this: people swear by someone greater than themselves, and the oath confirms what is said and puts an end to all argument. So we're going to unpack this a little bit because there's two words here that we have to pay attention to. One is swear or a promise, and then the next one is oath. So sometimes when we really mean something, we will swear by something that's greater than ourselves to get our point across. Kind of like someone going like, I swear on my great-grandma's grave, right? And they say it just like that too, right? So they will swear on something that's higher than themselves to prove their point. My sister will do this when we have parties and we have to take family pictures, which you all are probably going to experience later today. So you can take this and use it later because it works. So my sister will say, hey, kids, if you smile, I promise you will get cake when we're done. That's how they get their cake. They got to do the family picture first and they got to smile. If she really means it, she would say, okay, I swear, if you smile, I will give you a piece of cake. And I promise that I will also give you my corner piece of the cake. Yes, we have our corner piece people in here. We have people that love the icing part, right? There's only so many corners to go around. So for her, the promise is getting the cake. The oath is I'm going to sacrifice my corner piece of the cake for you to smile and take pictures. So if we go back to that verse of 16, it says, people swear by someone greater than themselves, and the oath confirms what is said and puts an end to all argument. Hebrews 6:17 says this. This is why. Because God wanted to make the unchanging nature of his purpose very clear to the heirs of what was promised, he confirmed it with an oath. God is unchanging. He is the creator of everything. He is as stable as it gets. And this is an important piece to grasp as we're going forward with these verses, because God has made a promise and an oath. And this is what these verses are referencing. So way back, before Jesus was born, God had made a promise to Abraham and his people. So he made a promise to Abraham saying, hey, I'm going to give you kids, which was crazy because Abraham was super old, and so was Sarah. And he was going to have many descendants, that they were going to be a great nation, and that God had also promised them land, and he promised that that their descendants would be a blessing for all of the people, because he had this rescue plan in place because they had been separated from God because of sin. He was going to be sending in a rescue plan. So God said, he made a promise to Abraham saying, I will save you, and he sealed it with an oath, I will send my son Jesus. Okay, so that's what these verses in Hebrew are referencing, is this promise. And by the time Hebrews was written, this has been fulfilled. So the people believed something deeply crazy had happened at this point, okay? They were wrestling with this oath and this promise that God had made, and their whole world had changed because of this promise and because of Jesus' resurrection. Witnesses had seen Jesus everywhere, and they'd seen him alive. And there was this gospel message that was going out, and it was going out like wildfire. And they were trying to understand it. So God has made this oath and a promise, and he did it for a reason. Hebrews 6:18 says this, God did this so that by two unchangeable things in which it is impossible for God to lie, we who have fled to take hold of the hope set before us may be greatly encouraged. When God made his promise to Abraham, he backed it all the way up. He was putting his name on the line because he made a promise and an oath. And his word is rock solid. It was a guarantee. God can't break his word. And because of this word, the promise is unchangeable as well. So there's this oath and this promise that took place. God cannot lie, and knowing what God has promised and what he hasn't promised is super important for us as we're going through seasons of transition, especially if you're going through a season that you didn't choose, a season that's really super hard for you. After 13 years of infertility, my husband and I, we were in this boat where we were trying to figure out, okay, God, we've been praying for these things. Do you see us? Are you hearing me? Do you see the tears that I'm crying? You put this desire to be a mom in my heart, and I don't know what to do with this. And I spent a lot of time wrestling through the promises that God had made and the promises that he hadn't made. And then we ended up having a miscarriage, and then all of a sudden we got thrusted into the foster care scene. And can I share with you that foster care process was probably one of the hardest times of my life. We stepped into it unintentionally. So we had been licensed previously in the past, and we decided to take a break. We had been helping families. We decided to take a break for a little bit. And then all of a sudden, these 3 kiddos show up in my life. And we went from 0 kids to 3 kids in a month and a half. I became a foster mom of a 22-month-old, an 8-month-old, and a NICU baby in a month and a half. Talk about unstable. Oh, my word. I'm like, do you feed them the Dino chicken nuggets or do you not? I have no clue. We're trying to figure this out. My art room had turned into a baby room. My Toyota Prius, we had to trade in for a van because my 3 car seats couldn't fit in the back seat of it. My calendar was filled with therapy appointments and doctor visits and people coming and going in my home. And then you add the complexities of biological families on top of this. How do we love these families well as we're going through this? And then advocating just on my knees daily, asking God, hey, God, I trust you with this, but even if this doesn't go the way that I think it should go or how it should go, I'm going to trust you with it. So knowing what God had promised and what he hadn't promised was super important for me going through that season because I needed an anchor. There was no coping mechanism was going to be there to help me navigate that 3.5-year journey where we did foster care. So no matter our circumstances, whatever season of transition that you might be in, whether it's good or bad or difficult or easy, we can be greatly encouraged because God never changes and God keeps his promises. Hebrews 6:18, God did that so that by two unchangeable things in which it is impossible for God to lie, we who had fled to take hold of the hope set before us may be greatly encouraged. And the next verse is something powerful for all of us to hold on to, especially if you find yourself in a transition that you haven't chosen. It says this, we have this hope as an anchor for the soul, firm and secure. Our souls need an anchor, firm and secure. They need it. They're built that way. And that hope, his name is Jesus. That's where we can put our hope. God, who does not lie and created everything, including you and me, made a way for us to be rescued and for us to be saved. And he did this with an oath and with a promise. So hope is a really strong emotion, and it can be a powerful anchor. And for those of us that are feeling a little bit motion sick in this season, this is what we need to be wrestling with. And we need to ask this question specifically. Okay, so what am I trusting to be my anchor? Is it wealth? Is it your money? Is money going to be the thing that saves you? Or your health? Are you going to be healthy enough to be able to withstand whatever's coming up? Or maybe it's a relationship with someone. Maybe you're leaning so hard on a person and realizing, oh, they actually might be somebody that you're anchoring to. The truth is, only Jesus is strong enough to be your anchor through every single season. Maybe you're here today and you would say, yeah, I totally trust that God is my anchor. Like I know that that's what I'm supposed to say. I believe that. But when you start talking to your friends, I want to challenge you with this. Ask your friends, when push comes to shove, is that really where you put your faith? When things really get a little anxious and a little frustrated, or things don't go your way, is that where you're putting your trust? Is in God? And that's a good question for us to dive into and ask and go deeper a little bit, maybe when you go home later. So with the few minutes that we have left, I just want to share with you 3 things of why and what I'm trusting to be my anchor. And it really comes down to these 3 things. It's God's presence, his protection, and his promises. These 3 things. So his presence. I believe that God is with us all the time, and he's there in the middle of the good and in the middle of the bad. And for some of you, you could feel really alone in a season and maybe feeling a little lost. Students in the room. We've got students in here that are getting ready to graduate, and you're feeling the weight of the world where everybody is saying, you have to have your whole life figured out by the time you turn 18. No, you don't. We're still growing. I'm still growing. You're still trying to figure it out, and that's okay. It's okay for you to take a deep breath if you don't know what school you're going to, or if you're going to do a trade, or if you're going to start a business, or you're going to take a year off. What you need to be doing, though, is making sure that you're leaning into your anchor of God's presence, spending time in his word, spending time in prayer, making sure that you're doing the things that Seth had talked about, right? Doing the things that you need to be doing now, so when push comes to shove, you have something that you're holding on to. Maybe you're getting ready to go into middle school or high school, and that could be an exciting time too. But again, make sure that you're spending time. Maybe you need to go to refuel, hang out with other people that are in your community. Psalm 46:1 reminds us, God is our refuge and our strength, a very present help in trouble. So this verse tells us that God is not distant and he is not detached. He is a very present and active presence in our life, and he can be very stabilizing because of that. He is what's holding us together. Next would be protection. So throughout Scripture, God's protection is actually tied to his presence a lot of times. Psalm 91 says this, whoever dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of the Lord, he is my refuge and my fortress, my God in whom I trust. I had a dear friend of mine that would literally call me and just read Psalm 91 while I laid on the floor, just trying to pull it together. She would literally call and just read the whole thing to me. And I just love this picture so much because it's not just symbolic, it's personal and it's active. He is our refuge and our fortress if we're connected to it. That's the primary piece. That ties with what Seth said. We have to be connected. Because if your anchor is not tied, when trouble comes, not if, when trouble comes, and the winds rise and things feel uncertain, we know that God's protective presence is there with us. And lastly, his promises. So overall, anchors are pretty much unseen. And some of you today trust you throw an anchor overboard and it's supposed to be attached to the boat and it's supposed to hold the boat steady, right? We trust it. But for some of you, that might be a little harder for you to wrap your head around and grasp. And so I want to challenge you with dive into God's promises. Promises like Hebrews 13:5 that says, no matter what you're going through, I will never leave you and I will never forsake you. Those are some promises. Because when it comes to our relationship with God, we need to ask that last question of, where is my life anchored? That's the challenge. Because we can't anchor our emotions, because if we anchor to our emotions, those come and go. And we can't anchor to our circumstances because our circumstances change. We've got to figure out a way to make sure that we are anchored to our relationship with God. And are you focusing on those right things? Today, it's actually 32 years ago today, on this day, that I chose Jesus as my Lord and Savior. I thought that was really cool that today is that actual anniversary of that. But today, maybe that's something that you need to do, is figure out, how do I do this? Is the anchor I've chosen actually strong enough to hold me steady? And so in the middle of whatever season that you're walking through, just asking this simple question will help. But you can even say this to God. You can say, God, I want to trust you with everything that I have, and I want to put all my weight on you as the anchor of my soul. Maybe that's something that you need to do today, because we can remember this because of what we learned in Hebrews today. We have this hope as an anchor for the soul, firm and secure. And so for me, in my relationship with God, what I have found is that he is the best thing that I have ever been able to anchor to. Because no matter what life has thrown my way, whatever storms have come, he has been a constant and he has always been there for me. And my prayer and my hope is that you would find that in your life as well. Let's pray. God, I want to thank you for today. I thank you for the chance to share just how you have been a huge anchor in my life, and that you have always been constant, and that you are never changing, and that you always keep your promises. God, I pray for anybody in this room today that doesn't have you as an anchor, that you would speak to them today, that they would dive into your word, speak to a friend, that they would just go a little bit deeper and seeing what that actually means for them to answer that question of, what am I anchoring to? Lord, I pray that as we go through the rest of our Mother's Day, that everybody here just feels super loved by their family, and that you would give them hope and encouragement, that you are always there and that you never leave them. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.